And the reason why Hashem made it, that the garments, which is Machshava Diva Maisa, thought, speech, and action, this is something that everybody could accomplish, to conquer. Thank you. But the previous is not something you can conquer, is because the main thing is the Eibishter wants of us is thought, speech, and action. And actually, thought, speech, and action does something more than the neshama itself, than the previous. We explained that the garments come from a very high source, and therefore they will lift the neshama to a place that the neshama itself is not that high. And the whole avodah is the levushim. And we understand from this two things that are very practical. One thing is in the positive, doing something positive. The other is when it comes to something negative. That in the positive, when a person is debating, should I really do this? Do I really mean it? Is it really from the depth of my heart? Is it emes? And the Yitzhara comes along and starts creating doubts in the mind. And the doubts are based on the fact that how true is it? And how deep is it? And how much do you really mean it? And in some ways it might even be true. So the answer is levushim. That Hashem wants me to do the right thing in thought, speech, and action. And even if deep down I don't necessarily have the depth of the feeling, the depth of the love, the depth of the faith, but I'm doing what needs to be done, number one, that's what Hashem wants. And number two, what we learned was that ultimately that will bring and reveal higher levels of the neshama that on its own it couldn't be there. So basically, the levushim will get me there. I left off last week saying that Alter Rebbe gives two mishalim to show that levushim are just external. And Alter Rebbe gives one mashal of a person who's a foolish person, and yet he wants to make the impression that he's smart. So he goes around asking people to give him words of wisdom, and he could repeat it. And then when he repeats it, people think that he's smart. I never saw this, but I remember hearing this many, many years ago. Talking about, yes, maybe 55 years ago, it's when I was in Melbourne. Someone told me that there's a book or a set of books that the content of the book is what to say when you're a certain crowd to make an impression that you know that field. In other words, if you're amongst mathematicians, what should you say to make impression that you know mathematics? If you're amongst artists, what words should you use? What phrases should you use? What should you say to make an impression that you are an artist? So basically, they're teaching you how to bluff, how to get your way around and make an impression. That's one example. The second example is a person who is not a good-natured person. In fact, uses even the term abzori, which means the person is a sadist. He actually takes pleasure in torturing people, and yet he could do acts of kindness. He has an agenda why he's doing it. The Rebbe says, why does Alter Rebbe give these two mishalim? Because when we say there's levushim, the garments, and the person himself, that's begashmis. What is beruch means? The garments are thought, speech, and action. And what's the neshama itself? Intellect and emotion. So one mashal is for intellect. A person is a fool, and yet he speaks words of wisdom. And the other mashal is emotion. A person who is not good-natured, but he does acts of kindness. So in the Maimon, the Rebbe says something amazing that the Alter Rebbe is alluding to is that a person who's a fool, if he gets around and hears enough words of wisdom from enough people, ultimately he's going to become a smart person. He hears from this one, he hears from that one, he repeats it. Eventually, he will actually become a smart person as a result of that, even though initially he was a foolish person. And the same is with midos, a person who is not good-natured, but if he continuously does acts of kindness, to make an impression, but at the end of the day, he's doing acts of kindness over and over and over. Ultimately, he could develop that attribute of kindness in a real way, that he'll become a kind person. So that's in the positive and also in the negative. Sometimes the person, the Tzahara comes to a person and says, listen, this is where you're holding anyway, so what are you so careful with not to speak about it, not to think about it? This is where you're holding. The person has certain thoughts that come to their mind, they're inappropriate thoughts. And that's a sign that that's where they're holding. So what's the big deal if you continue thinking in that direction? Anyway, that's who you are. Or if a person is angry and they're containing themselves not to express their anger verbally, the Torah comes along and says, listen, the main thing is what's going on inside. You're angry. You have kas. It's a terrible attribute. So what's the difference if you do speak it or you don't speak it? The main thing is inside you're feeling anger, you're feeling hate, you're feeling jealousy. Isn't that the real thing? So it says here, no, that when a person is angry and then speaks that way, a person is jealous, a person is arrogant, and a person is mean and speaks that way, then the levushim bring the nefesh habahamis down much deeper, much lower than the nefesh habahamis is on its own. So therefore, the levushim are really the most important thing that we have to focus on. And from the levushim, it'll find its way to refine us internally. You follow? It's the end of the year. You can start opening your mouth and asking questions and saying things. Come on. Okay, still another day left. Fine. Oh, yeah.
You know, therapy, encouragement, like anger, that type of thing. If somebody's talking continually, you want to be kind to them. You shouldn't let them express their anger. You should try to preserve it.
Well, there's a rule. Every rule has an exception to the rule. And they say that even that rule has an exception also. But generally speaking, that's true. In other words, in psychology, they teach you if you feel a certain way, just let it out. And the Torah teaches us to contain ourselves. But I think the difference would be if a person has the anger and they're just holding it back, yeah, inside they'll become like a pressure cooker. There'll be a lot of tension inside. What the Torah is really saying is don't speak it and don't think it. Which means one of the main things here is that emotions are triggered by thought. If I think about it, I'll be emotional about it. If I don't think about it, I won't be emotional about it. So now it's not enough just to say, don't speak it and don't do anything. But the main thing is don't speak it, don't do it, and work on dismissing it from your thought. And then inside you won't be like a volcano exploding with anger.
My question is really about someone who's you and doesn't know all the things about eating or whatever. You want to be kind to them.
Right.
Better to try and also you don't want your feelings hurt.
But
Is it better to?
But sometimes we have the advice that says in Turkey others, don't try to appease somebody in the moment, in the heat of their anger, because they're so emotional that whatever you say doesn't register. And if you try to say something, it means you're not validating their feelings, so they just explode even more. So it is a good thing to do, but not at the moment of the heat of the anger. The heat of the anger, you're supposed to listen, validate, make them feel good, and then later you can go back and tell them what to change. So we left over the question last time, and the question was, everybody gave the answer, but I said I'll try to explain a little bit better. Oh, I left the papers downstairs. Okay. What else is new? You're not going to find it. How do you know where it is? I don't know where I left it. You have a candle, a wooden spoon. Search for it. Trying on my desk. Okay, we'll do it this way. By heart, it's simple. I just like when you see something inside, somehow it's easier to follow. So the question we left off with yesterday was, not yesterday, but Friday, was if that's the case, then why did even Hashem create people that are tzaddikim, that they are on a level that they work with, they're finished with thought, speech, and action, and what are they busy with? Developing deeper love, deeper fear, deeper amun and Hashem, and that's where they're going every single day of their life. They're no longer focusing on Maisa, that's already done. A tzaddik, especially a tzaddik gomer, a tzaddik sheni gomer, even a benini, they no longer fail anywhere in the area of action, of thought, speech, and action. So the whole avodah is to transform themselves more internally. But according to this, the main avodah is the action. And the main avodah which Nefesh Habahamis is elevated is through action. So why is it so important to have such people? So there's an answer to this, which is also a general answer to a lot of other things. And that is based on Medrash. It says in the Chumash, the first words of the whole Torah is Bereshis bara Elokim. The Eibishter created the world, but the name that's used is Elokim. And not only is the word Elokim used on the first pasuk, but if you continue in the whole story of creation, every time it's V'yemer Elokim Yehi Or. Hashem said there should be light. V'yemer Elokim, V'yemer Elokim. In fact, it says that if you count it, there are 32 times the name Elokim in the story of creation. After Hashem finished creating the whole world after the 6 days, then the next pasuk begins. This is what I wanted to show you inside. Begins with the words B'yom asois havaya Elokim. Hashem Elokim made the world. So the Medrash says, why is it at first it says Elokim constantly, and then at the end it says havaya Elokim? And these are the words of the Medrash, but we'll explain it according to Chassidus. The Medrash says that the name Havaya is Hashem's attribute of compassion, Rachamim. The name Elokim is Hashem's attribute of judgment. So initially Hashem intended to create the world with judgment. But then he saw that if he creates the world with judgment, nobody's going to make it. Hashem's judgment is very precise, and nobody's perfect, and no one's going to make it. So therefore Hashem also incorporated the other attribute, compassion. And judgment and compassion together, there'll be a balanced world. And that's why in the beginning, everything's Elokim, 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 because Hashem wanted judgment. And at the end, it says, Havaya Elokim, because Hashem saw that the world can't exist with only judgment. It also needs compassion.
Wow.
Judgment means more mishpat. They wish to shofet every person very severely. There's a part in davening where we say, Rosh Hashanah, I think in Kippur, we say that if Hashem is going to approach things with judgment, even the Malachim won't be able to pass judgment. Because Hashem is so perfect, and everything and everybody is going to be judged. But the question here is a shocking medrash on the surface. Hashem initially planned to create the world with judgment. Why? Hashem is chesed. In fact, it says, Olam chesed yibana, the world is created with chesed. And not only Hashem is chesed, Hashem is the epitome of chesed, is infinite chesed, kindness and love. Why would it be that Hashem would initially create the world with judgment? But because he saw that we won't be able to handle it, so he decided to do it with also, as if second thought, to use also compassion. There's another medrash that says pretty much the same thing, but it says it in different words. There's a mashal. There was a king, and the king wanted to put hot liquid in a glass. Wanted to put liquid in a glass. And he said, if I put in hot liquid in the glass will break. If you put something very hot in glass, it cracks, breaks. If I put in cold liquid, then it gets stuck to the glass and the glass won't be clean. So what did he do? He mixed the hot and the cold. It's not too hot, so it won't break. And it's not so cold, so it won't stick. Look at it, okay, you need a medrash for that? But the medrash gives the mashal to Hashem. But Hashem said, if I create the world with the attribute of Gevura, the world will break. Nobody will be able to handle it. Shem Elokim. If I create the world with the meat of compassion, then it won't be clean, which means if people see they can do Averis and get away with it, then people will do Averis and they'll be forgiven and there'll just be a lot of sin in the world. So Hashem made a mixture of judgment and compassion. But we're still left with the question, why would Hashem initially want judgment and then compassion? So this is the way Chassidus explains it. Judgment doesn't just mean judging someone whether they deserve a punishment or not. Gevura means tzimtzum. Initially, Hashem created the world with tzimtzum because Hashem is infinite. Hashem wants a finite world, dir b'tachtenim. So the first thing that's necessary is tzimtzum. That's why Elokim is first. You can't even begin the thought about a world unless Hashem does it through tzimtzum. So that's Hashem Elokim. On the other hand, if there would be so much tzimtzum that Hashem's presence is so hidden that the world can exist as an independent, or at least perceive themselves as independent from Hashem because he's hidden. But if it's so hidden, then how are we going to bring godliness into the world? Hashem is so hidden that we won't be able to bring godliness into the world. So he has to also reveal his light. And that's what it means that we need both. Initially, Hashem wanted a dir v'taftenim, so he wants a world where godliness is hidden, and we, through our Avodah, will reveal godliness. But because if that would be the only thing, we wouldn't have the ability, wouldn't have the capacity to even transform the world, because it would be just concealment. So Hashem reveals godliness, and that's Shem Havaya. And where does Hashem reveal godliness? He gave us the Torah, he gave us tzaddikim, he gave us neviim, the miracles that happen in the Torah, the miracles that tzaddikim perform. That's where Hashem reveals his godliness. So that's the chesed and the gevurah. Yes, sir.
Reveal the godliness. What does it mean? What's the level? What does it mean?
So reveal godliness doesn't necessarily mean that I see with my eyes something which is Hashem, but it means I see something which to me is an open manifestation of Hashem's presence. In other words, sometimes when a person sees a huge miracle, they see godliness in an open way. You know, the stories, let's say, that happen with all the tzaddikim, Baal Shem Tov, the stories happen with the Rebbe. I mean, and maybe you've all seen this. There's a famous video where someone walks over to the Rebbe and he asks for a bracha for his child. And he says this child can't speak, he lost his speech. Expect the Rebbe to give a bracha. The Rebbe gives a bracha, gives a dollar, and the Rebbe says to the child, "Do you know how to say Maidani?" And everybody gets all confused. And the Rebbe says again, "Do you know how to say Maidani?" And then I think the Rebbe himself says Maida, and the child says Maida, Ani, Lefanecha, Melech, Chai. It says the whole Maida, and he starts speaking. That's called Gila Lakus. You see godliness in an open way.
Well, it doesn't, the way when I see, let's say, ocean, wow. It's not stuff, I mean, I can see, wow, this is.
You're right. That's the way it's supposed to be. We're supposed to see godliness in everything.
So reveal the godliness meaning.
You know, we make a bracha. We make a bracha for this every morning. Which bracha is it? There's a bracha. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam zokev kefufim. You know what that means? That we stand straight, not bend down. Animals are bent down, and man stands straight. What's the big difference? The difference is animals, because they're like that, they only see the earth. They don't see the heaven. Because we stand straight, we can see the heaven and we can see the earth. So basically, the bracha is that we should see the heaven. Yes, I can look at the ocean and I see godliness. I look at the forest and I see godliness. I look at a baby born and I see godliness. That's what we're supposed to train ourselves and condition ourselves, especially in davening, that wherever we look and whatever we see, if we look at it properly, we will see godliness. But that's through Avodah. And in order to make it possible, Hashem reveals godliness sometimes in a way that's so powerful that gives us the strength that we can see godliness in nature. But when something happens which is miraculous, that's when we see godliness openly. Yeah. So therefore, based on this, the etzem, the avodah that we have to do today is the avodah to transform the world into a dwelling place. So the avodah is 6 days of the week. You have to work out in the field and see godliness in the work, like you just said. But if we would be working 7 days a week, there's no day that's different than the others. It would be so concealed, we wouldn't be able to see godliness in our work. So Hashem created and said, one day is Shabbos. This is the day that Hashem's presence is more revealed than other days. And now that Hashem's presence is more revealed, it gives us the koyach that for the next 6 days, we can be doing worldly things, gashmitic things, and see godliness in it. But this is the reason why most of the week is materialistic things. And one day a week is Shabbos, because the main avodah is to work with the gashmis in a concealed world. But in order to be able to reveal Hashem in a concealed world, we need at least one day that's revealed, that's Shabbos. I just like the same with tzaddikim, that we need to, Hashem wants us to be ordinary people. Angels he has in Shemayim. He wants people that have a Yetzer Hara like us. We have a physical body. We're drawn and attracted to physical pleasures. And in spite of that, we turn darkness into light. We transform that. But if it would be just us alone, it would be such a concealed world, we wouldn't be able to. So Hashem created tzaddikim. These are people that are godly through and through. And they generate an awareness of Hashem in such a way like nobody else. And that makes it possible for us, which in our world godliness is concealed, that we should be able to reveal godliness in our avodah. So again, the majority of the world, just like the majority of the week is weekday, the majority of the world is ordinary people. And then there are some that Hashem chose to give them a higher neshama, that they should inject the midas harachamim, they should inject godliness in a revealed way in order for us to be able to do our avodah. And the same is with Beis Hamikdash. Beis Hamikdash is a place where Hashem is revealed. Kohanim and Leviim, they're divorced from physical work, and they're totally dedicated to work in the holy place that Beis Hamikdash. And they have more kedusha than anybody else. Why didn't Hashem make everybody Kohanim and Leviim? Hashem doesn't want everybody to be in the Beis Hamikdash. He wants us to be out in the field. He wants us to do business. He wants us to work with the Gashmitic world and to transform it. But if all the Yidden would be just working in the Gashmitic world, we wouldn't be able to make it. So Hashem created the majority of people are out there in the Gashmitic world. But then they're Kohanim and Leviim, they're in a spiritual world. And by them doing their avodah in a more open spiritual way, that enables us to have that balance that we can be in the Gashmitic world and do our avodah our way. So altogether, Shabbos and Yontif and Pesach and Shavuos and Yom Kippur is still the minority. Most of the days of the year are ordinary days. We say Tachla, regular weekdays. And Hashem created those days in order to give a care that we can do this. So that's why we need to be connected to tzaddikim. Because by being connected to a tzaddik, you are connected to someone who, in him, godliness is in a revealed way. And only that gives me the courage to do my avodah. Without that connection, it would be like working 6 days a week without Shabbos, without Yom Kippur, without Yontif, like a world without a Beis Hamikdash. And then it's all concealment. There's no godliness revealed. Okay, so let's do the page 38, 39. We'll do the beginning of the paragraph, V'zehu. V'zehu mashikra avedus adam hisur merav aseitay. And this is that the main aved of a person. Hisur merav aseitay is a person. Turn away from ra and aseitay and do good. The actual means thought, speech, and action. Kavana is that the neshama through its avodah should rise to a place that's higher than it was before. And that's why the neshama comes down. Because only by coming down and having thought, speech, and action in the physical world can it go up to a place which is higher than it was before in Gan Eden. And this elevation comes dafka through the avodah of the levushim, the thought, speech, and action. This is similar to garments in the literal sense that we said before. That through the physical garments, physical garments, they enhance the person. Your impression of a person and your judgment of a person is based a lot on how they're dressed and what they look like. The way they look makes you think they're a certain way. Sometimes people look a certain way that they're very holy and they're really very far from it. And sometimes people look like they're very simple and they don't know anything and actually could be hidden tzaddikim. You might remember a story I told you once in reference to a different subject, but I'll bring it in again. It shows us to say this point that the Mezritch Maggid's student once said to him, we're asking you to please at least once show us Eliyahu Hanavi. So he said, okay, will come a time. One day he called him in and he said, today there's going to be a big party by this and this nobleman, apparently in that area where they live, in that region. And all the noblemen that live in their area are going to come to be part of the party. And they're going to come like in a ceremony, like a parade. The second wagon, the nobleman that's sitting there is Eliyahu Hanavi. So you can get to see it. Okay. So the Talmidim are all excited. They go out and they hear, they go to the place, they hear the news that there's going to be a big party and other noblemen are coming. And sure enough, they see a whole parade coming of noblemen. They look at the second wagon and they see the nobleman there and they were like shocked. He looked very different than what they expect Eliyahu Hanavi to look like. He looked like a typical Polish, coarse nobleman. His face and everything about him, and a very coarse person who was very arrogant and had a lot of power, a lot of money, and you can imagine what they looked like. And they felt very, we can't approach this person. Maybe we misunderstood something. Maybe it wasn't the second wagon. They're looking here, they're looking there. By the time they finished looking, all the wagons, the whole procession finished, and they went into the party. Then they're talking among themselves and listen, the Rebbe told us it's Eliyahu Hanavi, we should have a munah, even though it doesn't make any sense. Okay, on the way back, they'll probably do the same thing. On the way back, we'll approach him. So they waited for hours. The party was over, and now the procession starts on the way back. And they see the nobleman. You can imagine, after a party, he looked even better. He looked even more refined than he looked before. So now they approached him. And they said to him in Polish, could we go on your wagon? So we began to scream at them and said, go away from me. I don't take fools on my wagon. And they ran. They could get in trouble. Noblemen were very powerful, like kings. It was definitely a misunderstanding. We came back to the Maggid. And they said to the Maggid, we went there, we didn't see Eliyahu Hanavi. So the Maggid said, is that how you speak to Eliyahu Hanavi in Polish? They saw a person that looked like a typical Polish nobleman. They couldn't get it out of their mouth to say, Shalom Aleichem, Mori V'Rabbi. Welcome, my great, awesome teacher, Eliyahu Hanavi. They couldn't say that because it just didn't make any sense. And that was the mistake. The Amunah should have been that no matter what he looks like, you say to what the Rebbe told you, he is Eliyahu Hanavi.
What did they say to me?
They asked if they can go on his wagon, but they spoke in Polish. Why did they speak Polish?
Because he looked.
Because they, even though they were saying he's Eliyahu Hanavi, but they nevertheless related to him as if it was a Polish nobleman. They should have spoken to him in Yiddish, in Hebrew, and say, give us permission to join you. So he said, I don't want to take fools on my wagon. It was Eliyahu Hanavi. What do I mean to say? What you see from the story is that because he looked a certain way, that made the impression on them that they just couldn't see that this is Eli Nabi, who is in such a tzaddik, a malach, whatever. So levushim have a tremendous power. Zeo, now we'll do the last paragraph. Zeo gam mashabirich sheiricha yimanu l'shler Yisrael. And we know that Yeshua went to conquer Yericho because Yericho is like the lock, like the lock of the whole country. If you open this lock, you have access to the whole country. Means, and now we know that Yericho is thought, speech, and action. The whole country are the 7 meters. When a person does the avodah of actual practical surmira, an actual practical asay in thought, speech, and action, not only does it, but he also sends maraglim, which means loss or belivchan. He's not just satisfied with doing the right thing. He examines himself. He goes in to reflect on himself. How are my thoughts, and how is my speech, and how is my action? And he wants to make sure that they'll all be directed to Hashem. Through Yericho, you get to the whole country. Ultimately, through that, you get to transform the midas themselves, which is kibush eretz zayin hamamim, conquering the 7 nations. And not only the 7 nations, we know there's a pasuk that says, when Hashem spoke to Abraham Avinu, he didn't just talk about 7 nations, he spoke about 10 nations. And these are the other 3, Keni, Knizi, the Kadmoni. But Hashem never gave us those 3 countries. When Mashiach comes, that's what it means. This is one of the things the Rambam writes. Where do we see in the Chumash that it should talk about Mashiach? And the Rambam says, it says in the Chumash that when Hashem will broaden and extend your borders, and Israel will be bigger, and you'll have these 3 countries, then you should add 3 more cities of refuge. Yeah.
What are those 3?
Corresponds to Chacham bin Das. I thought you were going to ask me, what is it geographically? I know Lebanon is one of them. I'm not sure that area is Keni,
Lebanon is what?
One of these 3 countries.
That will bring Mashiach?
That will bring Mashiach. When Mashiach will come, these are the Eretz Yisrael has its borders. But the truth is there's 3 more countries besides the 7 that we're supposed to conquer. We never conquered those 3. When Mashiach comes, those 3 will become part of Eretz Yisrael. So one of them is Lebanon. So I remember when they went into Lebanon in the war, the famous war of Lebanon, the Rebbe said this is the beginning of that fulfillment. And they had the potential at that moment to destroy all the terrorists. The terrorists those days were very small movements. It's a very painful story, but basically, I'm not sure which cities today is the 3, but I know Lebanon is one of them. Could be Syria, no, I don't think Syria, but Lebanon is one of them.
It's mine.
What?
It's mine.
No, not Mitzrayim. Because Mitzrayim is called Mitzrayim. Keni, Keni, and Kadmoni, and 3 other countries. They're bordering with Eretz Yisrael. They have to be near it still. What? I went online, I was looking to see if anyone writes about it. I couldn't find anything, anyone being very specific. I don't know why. It should be such a curious question. Maybe the reason is because you have to be younger to go online and to find things out. Some people don't know how to do it. But what?
Would it that be like a really big problem, like other people said, that if you want to conquer like these countries?
Well, we know that we say when Mashiach comes, that so will be ours, and we'll conquer, the Shalai will be ours. That's why they're making a lot of commotion about the mountain, because they know that we want to take over and build a base of English there. The more we talk about Mashiach, the more they feel threatened. But I don't think that's the reason. I just think that I'm not finding it because I'm not looking the right way. Probably if you do the right research, you'll find it. Someone has to be discussing what it is. When I say what it is, I mean what it is in the names that we know today, not the biblical names. Biblical names is Keni, Knizi, and Kadmoni. but it corresponds to Chacham Bina Das, B'Biach Mashiach Tzidkenu B'Korav Mamash. There's actually a very famous mimer, one of the greatest leaders in the Lithuanian world is someone who is called Rabbi Akiva Eiger. And the Mitzvah Rebbe once met with Rabbi Akiva Eiger, and later the Mitzvah Rebbe wrote very beautiful things about Rabbi Akiva Eiger. He wrote things about the Mitzvah Rebbe. And he said a mimer, and that mimer was about these three countries. What is it, Baruchnis, and why now we didn't conquer them, and why when Mashiach comes, we will conquer them. If you look at the bottom in footnote 46, they make reference to it. It's a very deep mimer, but it's about this thing that Chochmah Bina Das is harder to conquer, and we have to wait for Mashiach to totally conquer that. So we're almost on time because this week is Parshas Vayishlach and next week is Parshas Shlach. So by next week, when you learn the Parsha and you learn the Haftorah with the Meraglim, at least you have a minor to inspire you, I hope. Huh? I'm here, Mitzvah Hashem, you're allowed to learn even when there isn't a formal, official classroom. Anyway, ultimate goal is, yes, alone. You have to stand on your own 2 feet and learn. You want to know the mimer really good? Teach it to someone else.
So what's like a practical thing? Someone finds themselves thinking about something that they don't understand.
So the practical things that we spoke about a number of times, and it's also in this mimer, and that's very unfortunate that we don't recognize the power that we have. And that is the most practical thing is to dismiss, to ignore. And that's by switching. When a person has a thought that is disturbing one way or another, the most successful thing is not to stop thinking or tell myself to stop thinking. As soon as I'm aware, just to switch to another thought that occupies my mind, and not even to be thinking about the fact that I shouldn't be thinking. And usually, if I do this enough times, which means I have a certain thought that's disturbing me and I keep ignoring it, ultimately, that disturbing thought comes back. Or even if it comes back, I just for 1 second say, forget it, and it's gone. Initially, it feels like, how can I stop my thought? It's impossible. It's not true. The reason why it feels that way is because we can't stop thinking. Yes, it's true. You cannot stop thought. You can stop speech and you can stop action, but you cannot stop thought. But what we could do is we can stop the content of the thought. I don't have to think about A, I can think about B. And if I would just change that, instead of thinking about A, think about B, ultimately, this thought that's disturbing keeps coming back, it would not reoccur. I said this many times, and I'll say it again, that many people, you'll ask them, when you were younger, when you were in high school, you're a certain age, did you have something that really bothered you? You're obsessed with it. Most people will say yes. You still think about it now, and you stop laughing. Forgot about it a long time ago. Was that resolved or lav dafka resolved? No, it wasn't resolved. So why did you stop thinking about it? The answer is because new problems came in, and I was busy with that. And it's really true. You get busy with something else that came up. So because you weren't paying attention to it, it simply stopped wanting you. So we can do it consciously. When something comes, you just switch to something else, and don't let. I hear it's like a choo-choo train. You hear the whistle. I know this thought is going to drive me crazy. Just go straight to something else. The pasuk Yedeya Adam Nefesh Behemta. Everybody knows his Nefesh Bahamas. So I know my Nefesh Bahamas when he's going in that direction. I know where he's going. Immediately get on a different track and get on a different train. Okay. See you tomorrow, Mitzvah Hashem. What are we going to learn tomorrow? We'll start a new mimer. Okay.
Yes.